Hello, Palladium fans. We are back with the second episode looking at Erick Wujcik's friendship with Kevin, his work at Palladium, and his work in the broader gaming industry.
That's a great one. 2007.
Amazing.
He got to meet the voice actor and had a lot of fun with him.
Oh, that's a fantastic. Well, Kevin, let's jump into it. I mean, we covered quite a bit, and Erick has such a full and rich and pervasive life.
Oh yeah, that's a good word for it.
Let's talk about Sector 57.
So Erick had a thing about numbers. So Sector 57 was his first science fiction role-playing game that he did as a little saddle-stitched magazine-sized thing. So you got like some kind of game shield that came with it, and a little adventure book, and of course, he hired me to do the art. That's one of my early pieces. There's another one. And it was fun. I mean, he tried to sell it on his own. This is before really the internet took off. This is 1980. So, he was selling it at the gaming center and doing some other things. But just like when Matt did his little weapons and armor book,
yeah,
we're all fooling around with stuff. And so that was Erick's first thing. It was cool. It's a science fiction adventure. You find a derelict alien spaceship, and you have to figure out how to pilot it. And of course, there's issues, creatures and
there's
things.
Always issues.
Yeah, of course. It's an alien spaceship.
That's right.
Why is it derelict? And where are the aliens? And how do you run this damn thing? But it was pretty cool. It was pretty popular, especially at the Detroit Gaming Center. So that was fun. And then, go ahead.
You were saying that he didn't play in the Defilers campaign, but he was always there to bounce ideas off of and to help you like tear apart new ideas so that they became, small ideas became large ideas, and large ideas became great ideas. And he was instrumental in, like, as you were coming up with, hey, maybe these are some house rules I'm going to have for my D&D game that then turned into Palladium Fantasy. He was one of the major influential voices on the original Palladium Fantasy game.
Oh, absolutely. Probably the most influential, other than my play testers. And he also gave me feedback on art, because Erick was a decent artist. Not that he drew a lot. He was more of a sketchy guy, but could do concept stuff and understood art, appreciated art, much like Sean Owen Robertson, my business partner. And, Erick drew some of the maps for some later books and things for Recon and whatnot, and some of the Turtle books and After the Bomb books. But so I got feedback on art, and I got feedback on game design elements and things. And I mean, he was also great in that he, the original RPG has, that's the hardcover version we offer now. But the original RPG included Tombs of Jer City, written by Erick.
Yeah.
Is like, Kev, you need an adventure. And I'm like, I don't know, Erick, I'm doing so much other stuff. I don't know if I got time. He's like, I got this great idea. And he turned in this beautiful epic adventure that people just love. And, the original book has things like images of coins and that kind of stuff. And Erick really loved that and really encouraged me to do that. A lot of people sit back and go, I don't know, some of the magic is kind of unusual. It's not your classic, your classic wizard. And Erick was very, supportive of the Diabolist and, the Summoner and magic circles and wards. And he thought that stuff was just great. He's like, yeah, Kev, go with it. It's great. So, that was always very cool. And then Erick went on to, contribute to other Palladium Fantasy books.
Yeah.
We already talked about how he did a bunch of cool creatures from that appear in Monsters and Animals.
Yeah.
He loved the frickin' Wolfen, so he, did a lot of work on this, and he had plans to do a lot more with the Wolfen, but never got around to it. As we discussed, Eric his mind kind of bopped around all over the place. But same things with the Mechanoids. When I did the first Mechanoid book, it was his idea to do it as a series of small comic book size things. Because I'm like, Eric, I can't get the money. I can't raise the money. I was a poor kid in Detroit.
Yeah.
To do the Palladium Fantasy game like I wanted. And he's like, well, do something else. And I'm like, well, it's be the same problem. I can't go. No, don't do a big book. Do it as a small series. And I'm like, yeah, that could work. And, he loved the Mechanoids. He was in my Mechanoid playtest. And he's like, yeah, this is great, and he's just going to write an adventure for it. And I'm like, of course you can write an adventure for it. And we were always doing that kind of thing. Like when he was trying to hype up the Detroit Gaming Center and role-playing in general, he had me do like 3 or 4 full-page illustrations of like characters. So some local news station came by and filmed people gaming, and him and I talking about what role-playing is and how much fun it is, and why people should look into Dungeons and Dragons and games like it. And that's before we started, Palladium stuff.
Yeah.
And then, I want to discuss some of the other books in a little bit more detail. So I don't want to, if it sounds like I'm kind of skimming over stuff, I mean, Eric did sort of a lot.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff we covered under Ninja Turtles and Ninjas and Super Spies and that kind of thing. But, actually the other thing that Eric did, and I meant to pull it out, I had, he loved Japanese culture and samurais.
Yeah.
So with the success of our Weapons and Armor and Weapons and Castle book, Eric came to me and said, yeah, Kev, I want to write a book about assassins with kind of a focus on, ninjas. I think that was actually his original inspiration. And then, so he wrote Weapons and Assassins, which became our 3rd best-selling book in the line. All those books that Matthew Ballant wrote and compiled, and I illustrated, and Mary Walsh illustrated, a young lady artist who was at the Detroit Gaming Center and was a friend of Matt's, I think, from Wayne State University, or maybe U of M. I don't know. Everyone was hanging out, and those were a smash hit. And then Eric did this, and I thought, it'll be interesting to see how well it sells, because the other books were very comprehensive, and this was a little more focused and had less actual like weapons and stuff, but it sold as well as the other stuff. And we just kept doing that, and that was cool. And then to get the full story about Ninja Turtles, watch that episode. It's a really good one, I think.
We'll put a link.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. And Eric wrote the original Ninja Turtle game. And by the way, you can always tell if you have a first printing, because on the spine, strangeness is, and other strangeness is missing an E on the spine. It's other stragness. It's like, what the? But, a short version of that. And you got to mention Ninja Turtles when talking about Erick Wujcik, because it's one of his most famous game series. I had decided I wanted to do Ninja Turtles as a licensed property. I thought it would help get us into comic book stores and open up that door. And there was another writer who took a shot at it, and the manuscript he turned in, I found lacking. Just wasn't what I felt the game needed to be. And meanwhile, while we were waiting for this guy's manuscript, I'd been talking to Eric about what I thought had to be in the game. And, Eric just got it immediately. And he loved the idea of, being able to create any kind of mutant animal. And, and right away we start having discussions about, well, Kev, how do we account for size? I mean, you've got a mouse and you got an elephant. And I'm like, I don't know, Eric. I'm not working on the book yet. I'm waiting to see what this guy comes up with. And yeah, I'm going to fool around with that if you don't mind. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And, he came up with all kinds of great ideas that, did finally appear in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But because when the guy, like I said, when the guy turned in his manuscript, I'm like, oh, this isn't what it needs to be at all, in my estimation. And Eric concurred, and right away, half the stuff was already written. The other half was in his brain. And it was hilarious because Eric was working on one of his projects, which I don't think ever came out. And he was going to work on it his entire vacation. So he was like, Kev, I can only help you a little bit. So, yeah, Kev, I'll write the character creation section. I'm like, okay. And then it's like, yeah, Kev, we need mutant animal powers. I want to write that section too. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, Kev, what do you think of? And I'm like, and it just kept, before we knew it, he had written like 90% of the damn book. And I'm like, Eric, this is just great stuff. And he's like, I hope you don't feel like I'm taking things over. And I'm like, Eric, take it over. That's right. I'm working on another. Yeah, exactly. I'm working on another project, and this stuff is golden, Eric. It's golden. It's fantastic. You're on fire. So, because we were always each other's biggest cheerleaders, I think. Yeah. And so, he turned into this great book with great characters like the Terror Bears and Doc Farrell and Caesar and his Weasels and, the farm animals on Route 99 or whatever it was. And, it's like just awesome stuff. And we all had big expectations for Turtles. And I was sure we were going to sell a lot. But back then, like if you sold like 10,000 copies in a year or even 2 years, it was a hit game. So I printed 10,000 copies, which was a little dangerous. We had never printed more than 5 prior to that. But already had some successes.
Yeah.
And in fact, with the weapon books, we were already printing like 10 and 20,000 for reprints because they were selling so many. So we get it in, and we're like, don't know what it's going to do. Hopefully it'll be big. We sell out in 3 months. So I print another 10, that sells out in 3 months. And I'm like, hey, we got something here.
Yeah.
So, and Eric was really into it. Eric just fell in love with the Turtles and the idea of the mutant animals. So he's like, yeah, Kev, we need an adventure book. So he wrote Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, which is a great wraparound cover by Kevin Eastman. And it's just full of great characters, great adventures. There's more Doc Farrell. There's more, original comic strips by Eastman and Laird, all of which are in our Redux editions, by the way. And then he was following the comics. I turned him on to the comics. So next thing you know, he's like, yeah, Kev, let's do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Guide to the Universe. And I'm like, I'm not going to say no, Eric. You're a great writer, great game designer. Keep them coming, baby. Keep them coming. And as good as all those books are, and they're all great. One of my favorite.
Yeah, Transdimensional TMNT was spectacular.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the way time travel works, I'm not a big fan of time travel because sooner or later, it seems like the author usually screws it up, whether it's in novels, whether it's in comic books, whether it's TV or movies. Things just like the only other like time traveling character I really like is Doctor Who. And even though those versions, it kind of varies. Some are great, some are good. But Doctor Who works mostly. They seem like they have their stuff together with time travel. But Eric just wrote this beautiful description of how time travel works. And I read this thing and I'm like, Eric, you be a genius. Because I even told him when he was writing it, and he's like, but Kev, it's got to be in the book. We're putting in the Time Lords or, for the comics. And I'm like, all right, let's see. And it was just brilliant and works perfectly, makes total sense. And I'm like, oh, Eric, I love you, man. Awesome. So then we wanted to do sort of a spin-off. so we could do additional stuff that wasn't necessarily tied to the license. And Eric came up with the idea for the After the Bomb, which originally started out as a bunch of source books that tied in with the Ninja Turtles. In fact, the early printings all said a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles supplement. Even though we had all the rights to them, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird were really cool about that. So Eric wrote, and this is cool, by the way, Peter Laird
did the cover,
wraparound cover.
Yeah.
So Eric came up with this post-apocalyptic world. After the Bomb originally was after like nuclear holocaust, and then Roadhogs was cool because Mad Max had come out, and I think Steve Jackson's Car Wars was out, and that was super popular and fun to play. And so Eric wanted to do souped up automobiles in a cataclysmic apocalyptic setting, and I'm like, go for it, man. And all these books are smash hits, by the way.
Yeah.
And another one of my personal favorites,
Mutants Down Under.
Mutants Down Under. So many cool ideas, giant mutant insects along with everything else, and incredible, great cover by Kevin Eastman.
Yeah.
And great interior art by Jim Lawson at his peak. I mean, that guy was just so good. Those animals just came to life. And then Eric, we did the Game Shield, which I don't have here, and it came with a little adventure supplement book that kind of tied into the Mutants of the Yucatan, the adventures. We wanted to keep these small 48-page books.
Yeah.
And so we had to take the adventure out. So when we were doing the Game Shield, Eric's like, hey, Kev, what about that adventure? I'm like, that'd be great bonus material.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, and I think I mentioned this in the TMNT episode, but those books were making so much money that Eric was able to quit his job and just wander around Europe for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
It was wonderful because we were paying him a royalty for those because the guy's just so good. And he was making so much money on his royalties that he could afford to do that. And we're not talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars or anything insane, but, more than what he was making at the Detroit News as an IT guy and sometimes columnist.
Yeah.
So, and that was fun for him because he got to revisit his childhood place in Spain and wander around. And like I said, he was basically the Johnny Appleseed of gaming. Hey, you know about role playing? No. Let's run through something. No, you'll love it. And he would convince people. He was, like I said, he was this big teddy bear. And, people were like, okay. And he was a great game master.
Yeah.
And so people would indeed have a great time. And it was incredible. And then, because he had practiced a few different martial arts, he wanted to do some kind of martial arts game.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, how about something like, I'm good with titles, so and names and monsters and villains and stuff. So I said, hey, Eric, how about Ninjas and Super Spies? And so we did, and yes, we know that it should be Ninja and Super Spies, but Ninja and Super Spies sounds funky. And even though Ninja shouldn't have an S, we added it. And Ninjas, because there's lots of them. Ninjas and Super Spies. And he did a great job on that, too. We had a blast.
I played a lot of Ninjas and Super Spies back in the day. Like, that is a great game.
Yeah, it's a little dated now. At some point, we want to update it to more modern times. It's very much a 1980s, early 90s kind of game. Came out in, I want to say, 87.
Yeah.
88. And it shows its age, especially on the Super Spy part. The ninjas, but the cool thing is there's 41 different martial arts.
Yeah.
So it's not just ninjas. It's every martial art almost every martial art you can think of. And, he statted them all out and figured it all out and came up with the, how to create a secret organization table and all that stuff. Great Kevin Fales cover. And this figure, by the way, fun fact, that's Kevin Long.
You mentioned that during our Ninjas and Super Spies episode, yeah.
Because Kevin Fales and Kevin Long were good buddies, and they kind of went through the advertising biz together and came up together. So they stayed in touch and were good friends. And in this,
with the Jim Steranko cover,
incredible Erick Wujcik stuff, full of Asian magic, and one of my favorite sections is on the Immortals.
I was going to say, and the Immortals section, like I have several villains in my old Rifts campaign that came out of that book.
I can't recommend it.
Yeah,
highly. It's just for the Immortals alone. But I mean, there's more, super martial art abilities and demons and all kinds of great stuff in this book.
Yeah.
So, now, that was cool.
He revisited some of that material kind of at the end of his career when he did the China books for Rifts.
He sure did. Which I thought I had pulled them out. I guess right here.
I was like, if not, I've got mine right there. Yeah, and those covers.
Yeah, John Zalesnik really did a great job on those covers.
Really did.
And it was just great. This is 90% Wujcik. This is a 50-50 Kevin Siembieda, Erick Wujcik. And they're great. Yeah, and he revisited some of that, especially to Imagine. He wanted to do Rift China 3, which was going to be dedicated to magic. And that just it never came to happen. Came into happening. And then let's not forget he wrote what I consider to be the famous victim character rules for the original Beyond the Supernatural by Richard Corbin, comic book legend, and they're great. Eric just liked so he wrote a section on how to run a straight kind of super horror game.
Yeah.
But then he kind of liked, and basically Jason and Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger were all coming out in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And this book came out in 88, I want to say 89. And so all those were like hugely popular. And Eric's like, what about the people who are just, they go in the basement when they know they shouldn't? And I'm like, well, that's not really the game, Eric. He goes, well, and he worked up these great side rules.
Excuse me.
For, a victim character campaign. And of course, he play tested them with his group and at the Detroit Gaming Center. And I had to admit, it was really fun. And because you play dumb people, like there's some awful smell. And is that growling coming from the basement?
Let's go check it out.
In real life, you'd be like, call 911 and get the hell out of here. Where's my gun? Do I have a gun? Do I own a gun? Why don't I own a gun? But yeah, in the context of the movies and in the context of his victim side rules, it's like, yeah, it is growling. Come on, let's check it out. But it works really well, and you're kind of set up to, die. Half the group dies. His brain was just always going. And I think that's one of the reasons we just instantly hit it off is both of us, everything, and I mean every flippin' thing, gives us ideas. And then we just start running with it. And Eric would call me up or I'd call him up. But mostly it was he'd call me up and go, yeah, Kev, I just read about this or that. What do you think? And I'm like, I don't know anything about it, Eric. Oh, let me tell you about it. And you tell me about it. And it's like, and either he or I would say, oh, man, that could have applications as a superpower or a super villain or fantasy character, or when Rifts came around, everything fit in the Rifts. So it's like, ooh, that'd be cool on Rifts. And our Ninjas and Super Spies. And we just go on and on and on, exploring the possibilities. And 8 out of 10 times they went nowhere. At the end of the 2-hour-long discussion, it'd be like, it's a cool idea, but maybe as something that's added to something sometime. But it's not a game, or it's not even an adventure. Just
I wish I could have been a fly on the wall and figured out how many of those ideas just kind of went beneath the surface and then came out again during riffs.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I just like I never realized that, so many of the tropes in riffs were in my original Defiler campaign.
Yeah.
Until Tom Bartold brought it up to me one day, and I'm like, "That's not true." And he's like, "Level 4 vampires, vampire kingdoms.
Yeah.
Travel through space and time.
Dr. Articulus.
For God's sakes, we met the Tom Baker Doctor Who. Dr. Articulus and the twin sciences of magic and technology. Does that sound familiar, Rift fans? Techno wizards?
Also, After the Bomb, a post-apocalyptic where there's mutant animals running around. I mean, that's Lone Star. That's part of the CS.
Well, and the coalition, my coalition happened to be in a very similar location as Erick's Empire of Humanity. Mm-hmm. And what is the coalition if not an Empire of Humanity?
Empire of Humanity, right? In fact, I think that gets picked up in Savage Rifts.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a book title. The one that focuses on the coalition is called The Empire of Humanity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. So, Erick's influence is, kind of in the background all over the place, because we just loved ideas and loved developing things. And we shared our ideas freely with each other. There was never a, hey, that's my copyrighted idea, or that's going to be my trademark. It was just, we never had any of those kind of arguments or fights, or, and it was just always this beautiful give and take, and, just beautiful collaborations.
Well, let's talk about Erick's big game that he did, that in some ways was very controversial when it came out.
What could that possibly be?
Amber Diceless role-playing.
Have I heard of that?
I'm pretty sure you have. What a great game. And again, I'm going to just say a very weird game that I gave a chance and it works. It's just, you got to leave a lot of preconceptions about what a role-playing game mechanics have to include. Yeah.
So Erick had been kicking around ideas for a diceless game. A lot of people had.
Yeah.
Like RuneQuest came out with, I don't know about RuneQuest, but Chaosium came out with a diceless game. And there were various games that used cards as opposed to dice. Yeah. So yes, they're diceless.
But they still had a mechanical resolution that required an extra component.
Yep. You flipped a coin, you use this, you use that.
Yeah.
And Erick wanted to create a truly diceless game, which, by the way, he did.
He did.
Yeah. And it was hugely popular. I think it'd be popular to this day if he hadn't gotten sick and passed away. But he sold at least 40,000 copies of the whole book. I know he did at least 20 or 30 of the first source book, Shadow Knights. It's fun and it makes sense, and a big part of and it's not even just the whole diceless thing. I mean, even the character creation is diceless. It's like an auction bidding. You start off with like so many points, and if you want to be the best in something, you have to buy it. And if someone else wants to have the highest intelligence, then you're in trouble because you're in a bidding war. And then you got to know when to quit and how important it is to intelligence versus, say, prowess or strength or swordsmanship. And
can you be the second best and then pick up like a couple of other ones, or do you want to spend all of your auction points in being the best fighter? No one can beat you in the game, but they don't have to. They can outsmart you. They can. Yeah.
No, it's genius, and it really fit the series of novels that John Zelazny had written. I mean, this when you play this game or read the rules, there's no mistaking that this is Roger Zelazny's Nine Princes in Amber taken to role-playing heights, the likes of which you've never seen.
Yeah.
And it's great. And speaking of Zelazny, Eric just cherished his relationship with Roger Zelazny. They hit it off. I know Eric visited his home, and they were at conventions together. And he just loved Roger Zelazny, and vice versa. Zelazny loved Eric. And unfortunately, I never had the pleasure of meeting Roger. Eric kept saying, "Kev, you got to meet him. You'll love him. He'll love you." And I'm like, how can we? And our schedules are all just crazy. Yeah. And I had kids at the time too, and Palladium responsibilities and everything else, and and Roger Zelazny sadly passed away. And but something I want to show our audience is Eric was working on the second source book called Rebma.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this cover has ever been seen.
Who did the art for the covers?
The same person did the first cover, which is Stephen Hickman.
Okay.
Great artist, and love Stephen Hickman, and so did Eric. And I think Eric owned the original. I don't know what happened to that when Eric passed. But Eric's love of games and the community, the gaming community, it didn't stop with him being Johnny Appleseed of gaming, and he did Amberzine, which is sort of it's a lot like the Rifter.
Yeah.
Where it uses a lot of fan stories and comics and art. That's the first issue. This was the last issue, which was a combination of Eric was worse than Palladium, if you can believe it, folks, with hitting deadlines. And so this is Amber issue 12, 13, 14, and 15. Massive volume. But again, and it didn't stop there. Eric started AmberCon.
Oh, yeah.
And AmberCon was not just something that was happening in Detroit. I mean, the first one was in Detroit, of course. But he kind of franchised it out to people he knew, gamers across the frickin' world, around the globe. And I know there were conventions in France and England and Germany, and I don't know where else, but I'm sure there were. At one point, I want to say Eric told me there were 50 different AmberCons in various states and countries that were happening. Some biggish, some small. Yeah, it was amazing. And again, that would have continued.
Yeah.
Had Eric had a longer life, but it was not meant to be, sadly.
Do you want to talk about kind of Eric's farewell and sort of?
Yeah, I think I do, because it was amazing. So Eric, in case people are getting the impression that Eric was an amazing human being, he really was. He was one of the smartest people I ever knew, one of the kindest people, one of the most creative people. And, when you look up the word networker online, there should be a photo of Erick Wujcik.
Yeah.
Because that son of a gun knew everybody. I mean, everybody, especially in the video game business and the role-playing industry, and, with leanings into comics and novels and all kinds of stuff. Because Eric was just this, bold guy who'd "Hi, I'm Erick Wujcik. I do role-playing games. What do you do?" Or "I'm a game designer." And, it didn't matter who it was. He'd walk up to, Joe Blow you don't know anything about, or in Harlan Ellison with the same ease and confidence. And, it was just this larger than life, cool human being. And we were super close. So around Thanksgiving, Eric found out, this is in 2007, Thanksgiving 2007, And Erick had just been, like the year earlier, had been at our 2006 Palladium open house. It was our very first open house. And I think he had been to the next one also. I think we had one like 1 year apart originally. And at the time, he had lost a lot of weight. He always kind of struggled a little bit with weight. He was never really super heavy, but he was husky.
Husky is the term. I was just going to, yeah.
And he had lost a ton of weight. And he's like, Gav, look, I'm finally where I want to be. But he had been feeling tired lately. And he chalked it up to a lot of world traveling. He was always traveling. And when he got worse, he thought he had the flu because he had flu-like symptoms.
Yeah.
And when he goes to the doctor, he finds out that he's got stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And they gave him 3 to 4 weeks to live. So, he calls up a multitude of friends and family to let them know. And I knew something was up when he called me, because we kind of small talked a little bit, and he starts to choke up, and I had actually never seen Erick cry.
Yeah.
And I could tell he was, choking up, and he's like, "Yeah, Kev, we got something bad to tell you." And he goes, "You're the last person I'm calling." He says, "My mom and then you, because I don't want this to affect you and Palladium," because we were on the comeback trail for the Crisis of Treachery. In fact, he made me promise that his death wouldn't impact the company's future, and I have control over that.
Yeah, right.
But he tells me, and one of his closest friends, because remember, he knows everybody, was like the top forensic, one of the top 3 forensic scientist in the world, and his buddy Dan. And so Dan reaches out to me to tell me that Erick asked his doctors if Dan could review it all and see if he agreed with the assessment.
Yeah.
And Dan calls me up and says, "Yeah, do whatever you're going to do with Erick, because he's not going to make it through Christmas." And in his opinion, his expert opinion, and he's like one of the best. In fact, when Erick said, "Yeah, can this guy look it over?" They're like, "Him? Yeah, of course he can look it over." And Erick did respond to an experimental drug, and it bought him like 6-7 months.
Wow.
So he was able to put his affairs in order. And he came to Palladium, and we did a last podcast with Matthew Day, a Canadian who was doing podcasts at the time. And it was a really great podcast, by the way. But yeah, Erick looked bad. He moved slow. He was thin as a rail. And but he's still sharp and still there, and must have signed, my God, probably 200 or 300 books. At his insistence, I kept saying, "Look, Erick, you signed 50. Let's call it." And he's like, "Oh, Kev, keep them coming. I'll tell you when I can't do more." And I'm like, okay, because he wanted the fans to be able to get his signatures. I mean, I doled them out for years.
Yeah.
The people special, or would sell them, put them in charity auctions, that kind of thing. And of course, I got a couple dozen of my own. And but one of the really cool, amazing things that Erick did is, and I just thought it was like the classiest freaking thing, is his birthday was like January 29th or 27th. I always get him and my daughter as confused because they're like 2 days apart. And he threw this big 57th birthday party, which was really just a giant farewell party. There were like 150 people. He rented a hall. He rented the catering. He did all of this, so everyone could say goodbye. And it was really awesome. And it was funny because he says, "So Kev, I'm doing this." I knew about it, in advance. And he's like, yeah, and you need to be the MC. And I'm like, I don't think I can be the MC, Eric. And he goes, no, of course you can. No one else can do it. It's got to be you. So I did. And it was good. It was really good. And, I got a lot of compliments on handling things. And, Eric gave, a great goodbye speech. And, of course, hung around forever for people to shake hands and hug and exchange stories. And,
yeah.
His D&D group who we ran for like 27 years. They were all there, and my Kathy was there, and Matthew Ballant, and one of his closest friends, Renee Vega, flew in from Oregon, and because he's working with Microsoft, another gaming center genius.
Yeah.
And Eric's mom was there, and his sister and his cousins, and 9 million friends.
Yeah.
And it was just great. And I just thought, wow, what a classy thing to do. Because, he didn't know how much time he had after that.
Yeah.
Because they could never, that was sort of the scary thing with his condition and the doctors is they kept saying, he'd go in for his, seemed like every other week test and be like, yeah, so how am I doing? And they're like, you got 3 to 6 weeks. And he'd go to, and you got 3 to 6 weeks. And that turned into, like I said, 6 or 7 months. But, he finally passed away later in the summer of 2008. And, he's missed.
Yeah.
But I have nothing but great memories of him. And I think pretty much everyone does have great memories of Eric.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes when an idea comes out of nowhere, that it's Eric sending it to me. So, but that was Erick Wujcik, just a class act from A to Z. Taught me a lot, learned a lot from him.
Well, Kevin, thank you for sharing your memories of Eric. I know I never met him, but he was very influential on my life. I know Sean and I have talked about how Sean's very first exposure to gaming was role-playing games was in TMNT. And I know a lot of people that I've come across have been fans of Eric, whether they know it or not.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how could you not be?